Solos. So you want to go to Walt Disney World all by yourself, and you're thinking about dining reservations and how it might change if you were doing solo dining versus dining when you are going with a whole group of people, and like how that could even work. Well, solo spoiler, I think that you have a lot of really cool options related to dining reservations, even if you don't get them when you go solo. And I think we're going to talk about them today, if my cat will allow me to. Hi, everyone. It's Samantha and Betty. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do. And welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. So I have a solo trip coming up in April, and I'm very excited. And one of the dining reservations that I want to get for this trip is to do a high tea at Grand Floridian. And even though, because I was at a conference out of town, I was up very early the day that the reservations opened, I wasn't able to get a reservation. And I was like, how is everything already full at like 8 in the morning? It just seems like there are so many ways that people try to game the system, and it's so frustrating, especially if you're going on a solo trip and you are imagining these really kind of cool dining experiences that maybe you wouldn't get when you're going with your family. And so it made me start thinking, and then I was like, I reverted back to my normal, which I'm going to talk about today, my normal type of like advice to myself for dining reservations for going solo. And I thought, you know what, this is probably really useful for listeners because generally I don't stress about dining reservations because I have these other like fail safes. And so, yeah, I thought it would be a good opportunity to do an episode. And so here's the episode. All right, so Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, we are back, baby. There's also Patreon. So Patreon's only $4 a month for Americans, like $5.50 for Canadians a month. It is a really great way to support me, support the podcast. And it was really cool in my like little impromptu one-night trip in January because my like Patreon like money went to a big part of the trip that I realized when I was there, and that just felt really special. So if you want to become a Patreon member, for my, like right now, and it will help contribute to my upcoming trip in April. You can also be a free Patreon member as well. But I asked the paid Patreon members to identify which items on the Festival of the Arts menu that they wanted me to try. And then, well, I guess you all heard that episode. And then I went and I tried those specific things. And you know what? Speaking of dining, I really loved doing. Every time I'm at any of the festivals and I have my little passport, I'm like, God, I really need a pen. I really should be writing all this down. And then I was like, don't be such a Virgo. But you want to know something, Solos? I Virgoed it on this January trip. I got a little pen, got my little notebook. I made notes about which things I wanted to try, who suggested which items, the questions that they had. And it was a pleasure to do the food festival that way. So I'm going to do it that way in April too. So if you want to just become a member for like a week, or no, well, I mean, you get a free week trial, but if you want to become a member for like a month, and then you can also vote on what I will be eating at the Flower and Garden Festival. That'd be really cool. I really loved it as a way to just like connect with the listener community and the Patreon community. And so thank you all for that. Okay, let's just get right on into it. Oh, I will just say quick update that the anniversary, the birthday of this podcast is coming up on April the 1st. And so I have like a whole April into May, really fun programming to celebrate going into the 3rd year of the podcast. So I'm really excited about that. I hope you are too. All right, let's get into it. All right. So dining reservations. You know, I see a lot of people posting things online, like travel agents and things like that, or travel planners. And they're like, okay, here are all the tips for your dining reservations. And it just seems like so complicated, and like the math of it and the calendar of it and like all of these different things. And that hasn't been my experience. But then I was thinking, oh, Right. I'm not doing it for like a family of 4 or a family of 6. Or, I mean, it's either just me or on the times that I've done it, it's my mother and I. And then I've also just I've had the privilege to be able to go quite a lot. So I'm like, okay, well, if I don't do this restaurant this time, don't worry, I'll do it next time. So I realize I'm not like in the fray of this stress, but it is really stressful and it's really stressful for a lot of people. And the thing about your solo vacation solos, unless you really want this, unless it's your kink, I don't want you to be stressed about planning your trip or being on your trip. So hopefully this provides you with some tips and tricks that can help you with your dining plans, not just reservations, but dining plans on your solo trip. I've also had some travel agents on the podcast and like I love them all and they're all really wonderful, and travel planners and travel agents do a really, really wonderful job in supporting people on their vacations. But I had a friend, she's a senior woman, and she went to Disney for her like 70th birthday a few years ago, 5 years ago or whatever. Or maybe it was like her 65th birthday. Anyway, and she did it all through a travel agent, which is really awesome, right? Especially at that age, and there's so many things, and there's so many things, right? So she was telling me about her dining reservations, and I was like, oh, great. Oh, okay. Because the travel agent got her the dining reservations when the window opened, which is a really great support. But dining reservations for the sake of dining reservations aren't all created equal. So look, again, you do you, bibbity bobbity boo. I don't know what your favorite restaurants are, so I apologize in advance if I'm about to say something rude about your favorite restaurant. But she was there for like 3 or 4 days, and she had Rainforest Cafe and the Dinosaur restaurant at Disney Springs on there. She had, I think it was like Tony's Town Square Cafe, or restaurant, Town Square Restaurant, which is actually a restaurant I was trying to get a reservation for my upcoming trip, but I'm not going to do that, and I'll tell you why in a little bit later. And then there was something else, and I was like, oh, okay. Those aren't great reservations, and they're not great reservations because, one, the food isn't, like, super good at any of those restaurants. I know that Tony's Town Square Restaurant has updated their menu, in, like, the last couple years, so maybe it was better, but it definitely did not have a good reputation, like, 5 years ago or whatever, and those are also, like, very easy reservations to get. Those are all reservations you can get on the first day. So, my first tip, I guess, is whether you're working with a travel planner or not. And again, like, look, she had a great time. She loved those restaurants. It was all really wonderful. But there are kind of better restaurants. So here's the thing, you don't need to like totally stress out about all of your restaurants, but also just like look at places that you want to go and try and visit, right? Like if you want to go to Grand Floridian just to visit, there's a ton of restaurants you can get reservations for that you can like kind of pick and choose. So don't spend like a lot of time stressing about different menus and different restaurants, but while you're at home browsing your phone, as one does, think about areas you want to visit. Think about types of food you want to try. Think about types of dining experiences you want to get. Because what you might find is that if you are giving yourself a couple of options, it makes the stress of finding that particular option, it lessens that stress a little bit. Now, I think that most people start when they're doing a conversation like this. They start with the advanced dining reservations window. I never really pay attention to that, to be honest, because I enact other strategies, which I'll be talking about. But just a reminder that if you're staying on property, you can make your reservations 60 days in advance for your whole trip. So let's say you're going for 10 days, 60 days in advance, you can make reservations for that like 10th day as well as for the first day. So that gives you just a bigger window to make those reservations. If you're not staying on property, you can also make reservations 60 days in advance, but it's only for that one day. I'm trying to think of an analogy, but maybe it's not needed. But basically, like if you're staying on property, it triggers you being able to reserve for your whole time. But if you're not staying on property, then the 60 days is just for the day you want to make that reservation. And the booking window opens up at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time daily. So if you are 60 days out from your vacation, you could wake up at the crack of dawn at 6 in the morning and book your own Rainforest Cafe reservation. Oh my gosh, that was so rude and snarky. Or you could book your own reservation at Cinderella's Royal Table, which is more likely a much more difficult reservation to get. If you're staying on property, like I said, you can make your reservations for your whole trip on that first day. And you can make reservations for that same day. So you can make a reservation for breakfast, lunch, and dinner on your every day of your trip, which is great. But you can't make reservations within 2 hours of each other. And Disney just won't let you. So you can't make a reservation for like 9 a.m. at Ohana and then 11 a.m. at Crystal Palace. First, they don't want people just to, take up all the reservation times, but also it's just really like impractical and kind of impossible because of travel time, let alone stomach time. So just kind of keep that in mind. What the app will prompt you to do is that it will say, there's a conflict. So do you want to keep this one or do you want to keep that one? And then you can make a decision that way. Sometimes that can feel really stressful if it can feel really stressful if you were trying to get this really hard reservation, but you don't know like on your trip if you can even like do it. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult. Like I felt that, for example, booking the Snow White Wilderness Lodge storybook blah, 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 character dining. I didn't even know if I was going to get to Wilderness Lodge that day. But when I saw that there was a reservation, I'm like, should I get rid of the reservation that I just made at the Grand Floridian Cafe, for example? Or should I book this more expensive character dining and I don't even know if I'm going to do it? So I do recognize there's a little bit of stress about that. And I guess my advice is if you think it's a difficult reservation and you think it is more likely than not that you are going to do it, then keep the reservation that is more difficult. But I also really want to clarify that your dining reservations is not just open 60 days before your trip. And that's the thing I really, really want to emphasize in this episode, that you really need to think of planning your dining. Again, unless the stress of it is like your kink and then you do you, bibbidi bobbidi boo. I really would like to invite you to think of like dining planning for that whole 60 days, but even beyond. So, for example, again, if you're just like sitting on your couch and you're scrolling your phone, then you could like do things, for example, like just check the dining reservation availability for a week, like a totally random week that you're not going to be there, and just kind of take a look at which restaurants have a lot of availability, which ones don't have a lot of availability, which ones are you really interested in and that you're not seeing any options. Like it's just kind of nice to log into the app and just kind of start seeing patterns. Because, for example, if you were to look at patterns of Tony's Town Square restaurant, like because you really want to eat there, which is totally cool, what you're going to see if you just look for like a random week, for example, is that they have pretty open times, especially if you are interested in eating a little bit later at night or in kind of like awkward times of the day. And you'll also see, if you're looking for like that day, is that there's also walk-up availability. So it just kind of demystifies that whole thing for you. So I'm recording this after 7 p.m. on a Friday night. Oh, see how cool my Friday nights are? And I'm looking up Tony's Town Square restaurant, and then I see that there is an option for me to join the walk-up list. Now, of course, I can't join the walk-up list because I'm not close enough, and it will tell me that I'm not close enough. But to know that that option is available is really good because some other places will just be like, oh, the walk-up list is closed. Then I went into Tony's Town Square restaurant and I clicked on reserve dining and I put one guest. That's also going to be a tip I'm going to talk about in a second. I put one guest and I can see the calendar for the rest of this month, all March and all April. And I'll tell you, it's all green dots. And those green dots mean there is seats available. So tomorrow, if I went to see what was available for just one person, I could see that there was a 3 p.m. dining reservation. And like, yeah, that's not great. But if I really, really wanted to eat at that restaurant, and again, this is for tomorrow, then I could be like, all right, it's a late lunch, early dinner. I'll be flexible. So again, it's just like you can think of it as a game on your phone if you want. It's just some data gathering about what is available and what are your options. And then if dining is the most important part of your trip, you can kind of plan around that. But also, again, solos, like I'm looking at reservations for like today and tomorrow. If I was going to look for reservations for like the 60-day window, I could book literally any time at lunch I wanted and then early dinner times. The thing about Tony's restaurant in particular is that it's hard to get later reservations because people like to like camp out to be able to see the Starlight Parade and to be able to see the fireworks and all that stuff. And that's totally cool. That might be why you want to go. So you need to think about like, why do I really want to go to this restaurant? Is it the food? Is it because of the location? Is it so again, it's just giving yourself more options. It's doing that research and you don't need to worry about somebody else's hunger. You don't need to worry about someone else's dietary needs or nap schedules or any of that. You can really plan based on what works best for you. So the first couple trips that I took with my mother, I was gonna say she's an older lady. Of course she is. She's older than me by 31 years. I would make all these late night dining reservations because that's when I like to eat. And I was like, oh, I'm sure she'll have no problem with it because she's an adult. Like, leave all of the early dining reservations for the children. And then I was like, oh, she seems really tired. So I would then started crafting when we would go together, dining plans earlier in the evening to accommodate her, which is totally fine. But if it's up to me, I have no problem. Like I went to Cinderella's Castle on my birthday and I had like a 10-15 dining reservation and I was like, score. And that trip actually, my mother was with me. We were staying at one of the cabins at Wilderness Lodge, or not Wilderness Lodge, Fort Wilderness. And she's like, well, that seems really sad that you're just going to be there by yourself in the middle of the night. And I was like, excuse me, that sounds amazing. The restaurant will be totally cleared out by the time I'm done eating. And then I'll be in an empty Walt Disney World park wearing my birthday button to be able to like see the castle all lit up at night without like all the families. That sounds amazing. So again, remember, and this is something I would talk about a lot. I feel like I talked actually more about this in like earlier episodes, but for some people, there aren't a lot of opportunities to really understand what you like because you've been put in like a caretaking role so much in your world. And so really like think about, oh, you know what? A 3 p.m. dinner would be amazing, or a 10 p.m. dinner would be amazing. I don't know if any of you listened to the Amy Poehler Good Hang podcast, but she was doing an episode. She's done it a couple times actually, where I think it was like her and Gwyneth Paltrow, and they were talking about how much they like love 5 p.m. dinners. And it's like those types of things that you can start really customizing your trip around what your preferences are. And if you don't know them, like don't stress out. Be really curious about what you're gravitating towards in terms of the timing of your day and what you might want from it. Okay, so I talked about advanced dining reservations. So use those if you would like. I mean, that is not my top tip. It is for some travel planners, and that's totally great. But I think when you're going solo, you don't, I mean, you don't need it as much because you don't have to coordinate as many people. All of that, right? You're just planning for yourself. My number one tip related to advanced dining reservations, though, is to do some research in advance to just kind of see what those patterns are, and then you will be kind of less stressed about when you go to make your reservations if you are doing it 60 days in advance. But my next tip, and I've kind of already suggested this, is like, don't worry about the 60-day thing as much. In fact, people's plans change so much that you now have 60 days to play around with your reservations and see what becomes available. Like things, I have looked for things 60 days in advance that are definitely not available. And then I'll look for things 2 weeks in advance, a week in advance, 2 days in advance, a day in advance, and I find something. So be open to looking closer to your date. And that's why that little research tip is really useful here too, because you can just kind of see again what the patterns are. Like, oh, well, maybe it'll be easier to get this restaurant reservation if I try to book it on a Wednesday rather than a Thursday. Oh, can I move that around? Yeah, I think I can move that around, Like, be open and curious rather than feel like constrained by it. So definitely try closer to your trip. Also, at 6 a.m. every day, they do open more reservations. And what I really love about the new booking system, because a few years ago, you would put a time in and it would either say, like, yes, we have something, or no, we don't. Now you can see all the times that are available. And what I find really interesting about that is that you can see the seating patterns. So you're like, oh, I tried to get a 3:30 reservation, but I see here they have a 2 reservation and they have a 4 reservation. There aren't any reservations between 3, and that's because, they're managing the food, they're managing servers, they're managing service, all of that stuff. So when you're like, "Oh, okay, well, it's gonna be impossible to try to get a seat at that time because it's just not available," again, that opens up some options for you. So, yes, do your little scouting research in advance of your 60 days, but also feel free to do it within that 60 days too, and look closer to the trip about what is available. And you might also start seeing restaurants that you hadn't really considered. And when you see the availability, you might be like, oh, you know what? I do. I think it would be cool to try that. I've tried restaurants like that and I have always really enjoyed them. The other thing that you can do is that you can use an app. So I know two apps, they're third-party apps. One is called Stakeout and the other is called Magic Table. There is a free option and there's also a paid option. And what this is, it's an app, or they are apps, in which you put in a requested dining reservation time and for the amount of people, and it will send you an update if that reservation becomes available. Now, I've used it a few times and I have had good experiences with it. I'll talk about that in a second. It does feel a little frustrating because it does show how it's not just like humans that are up at 6 in the morning or that are like looking for these dining reservations. There are definitely computer programs and apps and all that stuff that are scouting what is available and what isn't. And so I like to use those apps if it's something really, really special. Actually, okay, I'll come back to that. But also, I pay more attention to those apps in the shorter window leading up to the trip because that is when people are going to start canceling. And to me, that's when you can find some like good times because now you are closer to planning your own vacation and planning your days and knowing what you want, what you need. And maybe you'll be like, oh, good. This reservation popped up. It's available. Thank you, app, for telling me. And then you're like, oh, I don't actually know if I want to do that anymore. So I think that the advanced dining reservations, that 60-day window, can really make it feel like a scarcity model. And again, you're solo. You're solo. You don't need to book for a family of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. You don't need to deal with like grandma's bedtime and the pill schedule and then the nap time and then this kid gets hungry and then the chicken fingers. You don't need to deal with any of that. So again, feel free to use the apps. Um, but I like using them a little bit more closer to the trip. Now, one of the reasons why I have used the apps is because you can also look at some enchanted extras, things like the Mosaic class at Coronado. That's how I was able to get a spot because I used the app. But please, 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 solos, remember that you can do the Mosaic class at almost every other resort. So don't rely on the Coronado one if that's the one you want to do. Like you can do a Mosaic at Old Key West. Like it's fine, right? So anyway, feel free to use those apps. I think your first booking is like free and then there are subscription options. I don't recommend one more than the other or anything like that. And there could definitely be other options. Those are just the two that I know and they have been useful. The other tip about booking dining reservations for your solo trip is that it's a computer doing this work, right? And the computer says there are only so many tables for one, and so many tables for two, and so many tables for three, and so many tables for four, etc., etc., etc. And so sometimes it is better for you, it gives you more flexibility if you look for dining reservations for two rather than dining reservations for one. Because I know this seems like you're gaming the system, and I don't think that is true, because if you are booking a table for one, they're going to place you at a table for two. So actually, you're not taking away anything. It is the same table. And so I do not feel any weird issues about it. I would feel weird issues about it if I was like booking tables for four. And then all of a sudden I was like, no, it's just me. But for a table for two, it's the same table. When it is like when your reservation is ready and you like check in on the app, but like at the maitre d desk or whatever, it will say to you how many people are in your party, and that's when you would then say just one. And that's fine. Nobody has ever said anything to me ever, and it's just a better way to get reservations when you're solo. Okay, but there are some exceptions to this rule. So any place you have to prepay, like Cinderella Royal Table, I mean, unless you're comfortable prepaying for two people, and I think you might lose that money, that's just like, like you shouldn't do that in that case. Also, a place like the Beak and Barrel, which I've talked about on the podcast, they have spots for one. So you can certainly check at all the restaurants if there's tables for one. But if there isn't, then just kind of see if there are tables for two. At a place like Cinderella Royal Table, where you do need to prepay, just call Disney. I mean, I'm a Zennial. I was born in 82. I don't know if this is endemic for our generation, if people don't like calling, but every time I've called Disney, the cast members are always so fantastic and so helpful. And and that's how I've made my reservations for Cinderella Royal Table, by calling that way. And that's gone, very easy and straightforward. And in Canada, well, actually, I think it's probably like there isn't a 1-800 number, so you're like paying for long distance. And I find by and large, I'm not on the phone that long. So that's an option too. Okay, my next tip, and hopefully this is coming, is that don't worry about reservations. Don't worry about reservations. That is my tip. So don't worry about reservations for two reasons. Number one, you can do walk up. So most restaurants will have walk up. It shows it in the app, and you can also, you can go up to like the hostess stand, but I think they'll just say use the app. So use the app. I have found for some restaurants, going right at the opening of dining service has worked really well. I'm thinking of the Grand Floridian Cafe. For some reason, it seems impossible to get a table for one or a table for two. But then I showed up when it opened and I was like, hey, And they're like, "Yeah, of course we have tables." And then I'm, like, looking around the dining room, and for our whole meal, the dining room was empty, so it's not like I stole a table from someone and, like, there was a party of 2 at the front being like, "Wow, if only she didn't do walk-up." No, that wasn't my experience at all. So, yeah, if you really, really wanna go to a restaurant, try doing walk-up. There are some exceptions, like Nomad's Lounge, for example. Nomad's Lounge, it's a little bit like Hunger Games. This is at Animal Kingdom. It's a little bit like Hunger Games when the walk-ups open for the lounge, and you might have to wait quite a while, and so just decide if that's right for you. You also can't make reservations at the Nomad's Lounge, so maybe that's part of it, but anyway, feel free to do walk up and try, and again, as some like, as one as one, it's often quite easy to accommodate you. And then my big main tip is use the lounges and bars. Use the lounges and bars. They are attached to a lot of the sit-down restaurants. They don't take reservations, and the seating is completely open. So, for example, Homecoming in Disney Springs, it seems impossible to get a reservation there. Impossible. I've tried it for one, I've tried it for two, I've tried walk up, all of that stuff. But you know what you can do, solos? You can walk right on up to the bar, take a bar stool, and say, "Hey, I'd like some moonshine and some mac and cheese, please." And they're like, "Yeah, of course." You get the full menu, and you did not have to wait at all. In the episode about the things that I did differently in December, I talked about how I wanted to go to Narcoossee's again, but I wanted to see what it'd be like to do the bar seating. And I just walked right in with my mother. We were sat right away. We had the full menu and also like very personalized VIP experience from the bartender. It was great. 10 out of 10. I wanted to try doing that at Citricos, which is also at the Grand Floridian, but it wasn't open that day, and that was fine. I was really excited about going to Narcoossee's again. Ohana, that's a very difficult reservation to get. It's also family style, which is not really great for solos, but they have a bar, they have a lounge, and you can get individual items off that family style menu right there. Now, I haven't done that because I don't eat pineapple and I don't really eat pork, and so a Polynesian themed restaurant isn't always the best choice for me, but I know other people do it and they love it. So make use of those spaces. Make use of the fact that you're solo, that you're one person, and that you're an adult so you can be accommodating to like the situations that are going on, like oh, there's like a really big party, but if you wait like 10 minutes, the bar will clear out and it'll be yours. And it's not like you have a child or a parent there with you who really needs to eat and like don't like doesn't understand why you have to wait a little bit longer and all that stuff. So, yeah, like bars and lounges are such a great option, and you can eat at places that you might not have eaten at normally. So, another restaurant, and I'm going to use this example again, but Topolino's Terrace for dinner. Sometimes it can be very hard to get a reservation around dinner time. Like there will be reservation options at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and maybe that's cool. But this one particular trip, I really wanted to go back there, and I just knew it was going to be a long day, and I didn't want to eat that late, and so I just showed up at the restaurant and said, "Can I eat in the lounge?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course. There you go. Any table you want." Any table, any table you want. And the dining room is full, but I got the whole menu. Oh, and here's the thing about the bar and lounge menus. Sometimes they'll give you menus that are, um, uh, more like a bar menu. It's a little bit more abbreviated than it would be at the restaurant, but it's the same kitchen and it's the same menu and is the same point of sale system. So you can just say, "Oh, can I have the full menu?" And they will say, "Yeah, no problem." Yeah, of course you can. Here you go. And then you have that option. So I had never ate at a bar or lounge, and I thought, oh, this is a subpar experience. No, not at all. An example of that is the Boatwright restaurant at Port Orleans Riverside. So I've stayed at that resort a few times, and I was like, I don't know if I really am interested in eating here. But when I started to do research, I saw that there were a lot of reservations, which might seem like, oh, people don't want to eat there. But actually, I was like, well, if it's so easy to get a reservation, then maybe it's like worth trying, right? Like that means I can be quite flexible about my time. So I did. Like I got a reservation at like a normal dinner time. I didn't have to compromise or negotiate the time I was going to eat. I could like literally have my pick. And I went there and I had a delicious like New Orleans style meal. And in fact, I had been in New Orleans like a year previous and I find it a very stressful place. I was there right before Mardi Gras, so there were a lot of drunk people and I don't drink. Anyway, I thought the food was delicious. I loved it. And so it was really great to be able to see like, oh, I don't have to go towards all the trendy things. I can just like make my own trendy things. And so I would recommend that restaurant. And that also has a bar and lounge, and I'll talk about that soon, attached. A lot of people know because there's like a piano player. I can't remember his name right now, and people really love him. I have seen him in passing once. He does seem fun, but the jazz bar at Port Orleans French Quarter is more my style. And both the jazz bar and the lounge bar at Port Orleans Riverside have menus as well. They have these pimento cheese balls. Okay, like, growing up, I thought pimento cheese was disgusting. I mean, right? And then I saw it, I mean, featured in, like, Top Chef or something, so when I saw it on the menu here at Disney and I, like, I try to be adventurous, when I'm eating at Disney, I was like, "What is this?" Oh my god, these are so delicious. So, I recommend those. I recommend those lounges, and I also recommend Boat Rates Restaurant. It was really great and a very easy reservation to get. So the other tip that I have that's kind of adjacent to the lounge bar tip is that when you're looking at booking restaurants for your solo trip, think about, and I said this earlier, what is it you really want from that restaurant? Do you really want that type of food? Do you really want that type of environment? Do you really want to see those characters? Like, try to figure out what exactly it is, and then just be open to seeing other options. So, for example, Topolino's Terrace is often a really difficult reservation to get for breakfast. It's a character dining experience and it has very good food. So, you might be looking and looking and looking, getting reservation, and you're not finding it. Well, is it that you want to see Mickey and Friends during a character dining experience? Well, if you want to do it for breakfast, you could go to Contemporary Cafe as well. If you were open to seeing Mickey and Friends for lunch or dinner, you could go to Hollywood and Vine or Tusker's House. Hollywood and Vine is at Hollywood Studios. Tusker House is at Animal Kingdom Lodge. Like, if you want to see the characters, there are other dining spots that you can see all the characters during a dining experience. Which, as I have done episodes on, I think is a great way as a solo to see characters because you can be like, oh, I'm not really here to see Mickey, but I'm just here to eat. But also, Mickey, give me a big hug. So, if you're trying to get a reservation for Topolino's because you want to see the characters, then again, maybe be open to other places that you can have dining experiences with the characters. Hey, I don't know if this sounds different because I just remembered it. So I was putting the episode together. The other place that you can have a character breakfast with Minnie and Mickey in really cute outfits, like not artist outfits, but beach outfits, is Cape May Cafe. They have a character dining for breakfast. It's also at a hotel, so you don't need a park pass to get into it. And it's a really tasty buffet, and Mickey and Minnie and Donald and Daisy and Goofy are all there in like seaside outfits. And I've been there a couple times. I had a great time. And to be honest, I found the last couple times I found Topolino's Terrace really busy and hectic with strollers and kind of like bougie-ish parents, like parents that are, yeah, like kind of bougie-ish parents. And like I find sometimes there isn't a lot of like awareness of space and other people. So I actually think, I mean, the food isn't as elevated, but if you did want character dining and you couldn't get Topolino's Terrace, then try Cape May Cafe for sure, for sure. Okay, back to the original recording. And I guess like the one exception to the rule or to this tip is Cinderella's royal table. Like, if you wanted to go and have a meal with princesses, then yes, you do have other options. You can go to, oh my God, I can never pronounce it. And like my brain sees it, but my mouth cannot say it. The place in Norway. Actually, a solo did tell me they were going there and asked me if I had any tips. And I said, no, because I've never been there. So please let me know. Akershoes. I think that's it. If you've been there solo, please let me know. Please send me a DM and let me know what it's like to be there solo. I'm sure it's great. But you can see the princesses there, for example. So if you just want to go see the princesses, there are some other options, dining options. But if you just want to be in this castle and see it, then yeah. I mean, again, you can like open your mind to some other options, see if you can get a Be Our Guest reservation. But there isn't, anything quite the same as like being in Cinderella Castle. But the very last tip that I have in regards to your dining plan, dining reservations on your solo trip, and I hope you have found this helpful, and maybe you won't be surprised by what I'm about to say, is that if you don't get the dining reservation or the walk up or the bar and lounge seating that you had envisioned, despite your research, despite your backup, all of that stuff, then just know and be satisfied and be okay and open and curious to the fact that it wasn't meant to happen on this trip. And that is totally okay. So Beacon Barrel is a good example. Or actually, I'm going to use a ride example, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. So I'll start with Tiana's actually. I was at Disney for the weekend. They were doing annual pass previews for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. And I was really hoping that I, as an annual pass member at that time, I was able to do the preview of the ride because I was really excited for it to open. And despite checking all the time leading up to the trip, the morning of each day, the afternoon of each day, and despite my very best efforts, I did not get to be a part of the annual pass preview. And so I was super bummed about that. I was super pumped about that too because there was some person on the monorail that was like, oh yeah, I did get part of the virtual queue. My boarding group was 11. I know they're on 176 now, but I'm sure they'll just like let me in. I was like, I hope they don't. I didn't say that out loud. I did say that in my brain. So I didn't get part of it, but people that did get part of the previews, except for that one person, they were still having a lot of technical issues. So, for example, people were still waiting in 2-hour long lines. There were technical delays. Like, it would have taken up the whole day. And because of everything going on, it would have felt like I wouldn't have been able to really enjoy it because there were also all these content creators that wanted to go and get content and all of that stuff. So I didn't get it and I was really bummed. But then we were able to like make our dining reservation at like Park 1900 Park Fair, where I did wear my outfit, Tiana inspired outfit, to meet Tiana at the restaurant. And it was like, you know what? It just wasn't meant to be on this trip. And the next time I had gone to Disney, I was doing a Keys to the Kingdom tour, and I had said to the guide, hey, I want to get in the virtual queue when it opens in the afternoon, but we're going to be underground in the utilidors, and I can't use my phone. So, like, do you have any recommendations of how I can try to get into the virtual queue, even though I'm trying to like follow the rules and not use my phone in the utilidors? And the cast member was like, you know what? We'll just get you a lightning lane. He's like, don't like spread it around, but I think we can do that for you for this tour. And so the next time, even though I was like so anxious about doing the Tiana's Bayou Adventure, it wasn't meant to be. And the next time I was pixie dusted a lightning lane to experience it in a much like more relaxed atmosphere. And it was just so wonderful, right? And so The same with Beacon Barrel. My experience at Beacon Barrel was that I did enjoy the one thing that I ate. Well, I ate a few things. One of the things I ate I really enjoyed. I did feel really rushed, but I did try to get reservations earlier, and I heard that people were felt even more rushed and all of that stuff. So because that was such a negative for me when I went and it had already been open for a few months. I think that if I had gone earlier, then I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much because I would have felt more rushed. Now, of course, that is like, oh, I can do it next time. And you might not have that option. But again, sometimes it's just not meant to be for that trip. And that's totally okay. I have found, and I've said this on the podcast a lot, that when I'm following trends and I'm driven by FOMO from different social media things in relation to food or attractions or anything like that on my solo Disney trips, I often am let down because it's like promoting Disney World is what they're actually doing with all of those promotions of this like one snack and the this and this and the this. Yeah, they're promoting that snack, but really they're promoting you to just get to Walt Disney World. When I get that snack, when I get that reservation or whatever, I might be like, oh, well, this is certainly not as cute as what I was expecting. This is certainly not as big of a deal as they may have suggested online. So, again, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And that is totally okay because you're still at Disney World. You're still there by yourself. You're still there enjoying as much as possible. And hopefully you've done some like thinking work ahead of time about like the attributes that you wanted for your own trip. And you can navigate towards dining reservations or other experiences that are more in line with those particular attributes. You might also find on your trip that you are like, I am so glad I don't have any dining reservations because I just love being able to like walk and go and do my own thing. And I love that for you so much. I find increasingly that has been my approach to a lot of the trips so that I can be, again, curious about places I wouldn't normally go and restaurants or food that I wouldn't be able to try. And when I have things like the lounges and the bars available to me, I also know I can like eat something small without really binding myself to a big, heavy, full, maybe expensive meal. Oh, so another good example of that, even though I'm wrapping up, is Space 220. It's very, very hard to get a reservation. I tried and tried and tried, and then eventually I was able to get a reservation for one at the lounge. And when I got into the restaurant, first, it is gorgeous in there. I loved it, but I realized, oh my God, the lounge is so much better than the restaurant would be. It's in the exact same spot, but the lounge is further back from the space windows. So you can actually see a lot more, which is really, really cool. And the Space 220 has a prefix menu, but the lounge just has like smaller bar items. So I got like tacos and shrimp and this and this and this. And I wasn't getting like heavy, beef or whatever. And I just really loved it in there, and I was like, "Oh, I will probably never do the restaurant. But I would definitely come to the lounge again." So, again, just like be open, be flexible, know that content creators, maybe not me, I hope not me, are really like selling you on like the FOMO of it all. And that when you're going to Disney solo, I invite you to like actively step away from that as much as possible so you can really center yourself on the trip as much as possible. All right. I thought this was going to be a short episode. It was not. I hope it was useful for you. I actually think it might be useful to like put these tips in a document and I'll put that up on Patreon for free and paid members. So that'll be a goal. But until next time, solos. Bye. Hey Solos, it's Samantha. I hope you like this episode and all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. This 2026, consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon member. Your Patreon membership helps offset the cost of running the podcast, but also creates a little fund for me to try new things when I'm at Disney Solo and tell you all about them when I get back.
Patreon members get a reflection after every episode, and that is like a mini episode in and of itself where I give you some behind the scenes stuff that I don't want on the public feed. Thank you again for listening. Please make sure you also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. Please make sure you subscribe, like, review, share on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.